We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I'm back. That still has a nice beat to it. Still seated twerking to bounce. New Year. And that song still has a vibe in 2025. Also, it's time for a new intro. I am in with a podcast change. I added the F.A.A.F.O to it. But I'm back with the same formula that has allowed me to be successful in the past. I've set realistic intention. I plan on being present and following through, but I still intend to remain petty and hold grudges. Not all intentions need to be positive. Also, I will be unengaged and unbothered by people and things in my life that do not serve me. That means parasitic people, unsolicited judgments, biased newspapers, and mainstream banks. I will not apologize for maintaining my mental peace. Happy and unbothered and at peace because I'm at unbothered. All day, every day, being unbothered is my way. Join me. It's all about what you're willing to accept, what you want in your life. Is it positivity or is it not? Sun Tzu was a Chinese general, military strategist, given the honor of writing The Art of War. In The Art of War, it stresses the importance of knowing one's own strengths and weaknesses. You avoid unnecessary conflict. If you use psychological warfare, it manipulates the enemy's perceptions and actions. Do not engage in personal attacks or pettiness. Yeah, I don't think Sun Tzu anticipated these New Age Chinese nor Trump, because everybody, including you can be blind and know that Trump has a hard on for Obama, a black dude, mixed, that is so much more a man and is much smarter. One of the best presidents of the United States, that he can never imagine or measure up to anything. His whore of a wife, wait a minute, scratch that, former whore of a wife, nor any of his mouth-breathing dope fiend kids. So with that said, the Chinese knows that the United States, we don't want that smoke. They almost 2 billion strong. They go hard. They can pivot. They don't tariffs. They don't give a F about him, his little hands, or his ill-positioned weave. They cool. But they petty as hell. I hope this is true. How you gonna keep the United States on red when you really have to renegotiate these trade deals in the face of 250% tariffs, and you basically play Obama speeches Really? Because you know his ass is lying. Every part of his being. Every time this fool, you know, the president of the United States, every time he opened his mouth, a lie gonna fly out. They said we got time, we can pivot, we don't care. They don't. We don't want that smoke, China. And they know we don't want that smoke. They know they got time, they got the money, they got the gold, they got the silver. They cool. But they can be petty. They also know that one of the leaders of so-called free world is also extremely petty, and he also has a low self-esteem, has a hard on for the previous president that did serve 2 consecutive terms in the face of hate in this country. He benefited from every positive thing that happened during that administration while he was side mouthing and poor mouthing and doing the least. So with that said, they understand the assignment. They know about being petty, even though they really shouldn't be petty. But they say they got time. We got all the time to poke fun at somebody with the low self-esteem and little hands. I hope that is true. I want them to be sat on red and to be listening to Obama speeches, because we know everything that you say is going to sound stupid and it's going to be a lie. So now you need to learn. Since we know you don't read, you need to, you can at least listen to what speech making is and when it's followed up by true actions. I hope it's true. Because this is a level of petty I can only aspire to. Petty-luya, y'all. Petty-luya.
To my homegirl Laquita J.L. Moore, Najee. Lift every chair and swing till all them white folks scream. Thought y'all could run up on our black king. I'm glad the squad pulled up, dedicated to Nuck if you buck. May it resound loud as the rolling sea. Throw your hats high in the air until Unc comes with the chair. Swim the seas until our cousins come and they rescue me. Let this be a lesson to y'all. Remember the Montgomery brawl, where white folks fucked around and they found out.
Karen and every conservative and Hispanic and person of color that's in denial, y'all do realize y'all just keep giving comedians and me fodder to drag y'all, right? I keep coming up with this stuff. Woke history, and the more you rail against people that are equal to you, that I just don't get why y'all keep doing this dumb-ish. You know what I mean? But thank you, because it makes this part of the episode or part of the podcast really easy, because y'all give me all the ammunition I need to drag you. And also, I just don't understand, or I'm going to need other people that want to just get clicks, or they just want to go viral. Unless you personally witness or you have that actual video of them removing stuff from the Blacksonian, I'm going to need you to have a seat and shut up. So, because all this trolling and all of this extra stuff, if you don't have the true ammunition and you haven't double and triple checked your sources, I can't, it's not sustainable having my cortisol level up that high. So you just need to sit down and have a seat, Dimitri L. Lucas. I can't always be on 20. And just because I'm not as hyped up as you doesn't mean that I don't care. It's just that I'm reserving my outrage for things that I know are proven and that I know I can do something about. Because that's the only way we're going to get through this stuff. We got to basically gauge and reserve our energy for the things that we can actually get through. I'm also going to combine this section of woke history because I'm still in the process of reading Miss Tina's book, and I'm actually basically just floored by her life. I mean, the book itself is 432 pages of tea. And it is a well-written history of one person's life, how it affected probably, arguably, one of the greatest entertainers ever to grace us. And she and her sister and their friends allow us to continue to be entertained in this world. And that's why people are dropping thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars on silver stuff and a new concert, everything, because they're following Tina Knowles, former Beyonce. Her last name was Beyonce, y'all. Little badass teeny Celestine Beyonce. That's who we're actually getting the tea on now. And even though it's 432 pages, a tome, we're still only getting a segment of her life. But it is a life of a woman that is still elegant, proud, tall, but not stoop or bent. And either way that you get it, I'm going to get the book because I like having a great read, being able to handle that. But also, hearing her read this on Audible, it's still, there's no replacement. It's like, which one is better? You know, I get to go back and read it. And I also get back to listening to the Audible. It's one of the reasons why I probably won't give up that subscription, because if I get to read or listen to someone read their incredible life to me, it is actually dope. And you can actually go and purchase the book. The link will be in the notes, but at the same time, you just got to go to Audible and be able to listen to this. This is why now I understand. She went from Weeks Island, her family did, to Galveston, which is an island in Texas, to her seaside house in Malibu that actually burned down. But did y'all know that the fire that destroyed her family's home is by firebombing, it propelled her, because her family probably would have stayed in Weeks Island if their house wasn't firebombed. Not because they actually unionized, but because they talked about unionizing the family, because the family who were formerly slaves on the sugar plantation of the Weeks then started working in the salt mine. And if it wasn't for an accident that almost killed her father but left him blind in one eye and deaf in one ear, they would have still been on Weeks Island. I really believe that. And also probably Miss Tina believed that. But that propelled them to Galveston and only visiting Weeks Island. How she basically just talked about still being bound, and she still had to be re-educated from her high anxiety mother. She was taught how to become a master seamstress, a skill to be barter, but you could be limited by creativity, by your own fear. Her mother was a ball of anxiety and fear, and rightfully so. This woman lived through so much things. Lived through Jim Crow, Louisiana, then Texas, the most racially segregated part of this country. And then married, her first husband married to somebody that also made her fear and broke her beauty. And then she had to be penalized for getting a divorce from somebody that was hateful and abused her. So the church that she spent every day going to mass, they still basically looked at her as less than because she got a divorce from the man that abused her. She realized, and it took her probably took her half of her lifetime to realize that the truth and how her mother tried to keep her safe was actually unbinding. And she still could love her, but still had to unlearn some of the things that her mother actually taught her, the survival mode and always being in survival mode, because that would have stumped her creativity. And then allowed that generational trauma would have been carried on to her kid, and we may have not gotten the Solange and the Beyonce of it all. I was also tripped out. The nuns that were in charge of the children for decades, they were vengeful and they were hateful, and they only wanted to humiliate and shame the childhood out of the kids. I would have basically snatched that transpondent like President Biden's mama the first time she threatened or hit my kid. Child, I'm not one of them turn the other cheek Negroes. Completely different time. Now, Miss Tina can reflect on that and see how she would have and could have done differently, and probably did, because we wouldn't have had who we actually have or allowed to entertain us for the last 20, 30 years. She was raised in a dirty, violent South. And it also, just her little bit, I'm only up to chapter 6 out of 44. And now I understand why her mother had a tic. And I'm only getting a tidbit of what happened in her life. She remembers the brutality of the murder of Emmett Till, and how at 5 years old, she wanted just to get ice cream off a couple of hard-earned nickels given to her by the same anxiety-ridden mother. She didn't understand she had to wait for the white kids to come out before she could go in. She didn't know she had to sit in the back of the crowded Blackfield bus, even though there were empty seats up in the front by the white lady. She recalled the firebombing of her family's home in Weeks Island for even talking about unionization, how her brother almost got killed after being drugged at a house party in Galveston, and then passing out on a family friend's porch, who didn't know who it was. And the Miss Patrick thought that he was some white man passed out drunk, called the cops before realizing that could have been the death sentence for her brother, or for that young man, because they basically Rodney Kinged him. They had one black cop in that gaggle of white cops, how her mother got on her knees begging for her brother's life, and he just was basically burnt piece of trash within that gaggle of white trash. How her family suffered years of harassment. People, like Miss Seeley said, people don't like folks being too happy or too free. They have to make them pay for that, just like those nuns did, the black nuns did. Because they related it to how escaping from Weeks Island, only from the slaves escaping Weeks Island, how they would have to be harassed and locked up for vagrancy, only to be re-enslaved by the patty rollers and slave catchers. this book is, I'm right at the beginning of this book, and I know that this is only a tidbit of a life well lived, and I'm here for it, and I'm going to, as much as I can, continue to listen to it and read and just enjoy. I don't think she meant it to be entertaining, but it's just so rich in detail that I'm lucky that I am listening to the audible version of it so I can rewind and then re-listen to it. But it's such a rich story. But this is only one lady's perspective, but how it is so many people can relate to this story. No, not everybody actually births a Beyonce, but how her story is so much, it's very similar to every other African American that family originated from the South or from this country and has the same slave narrative history. It's absolutely amazing. And everybody should listen to it, read it, get your hands on it, if you ask me. We're a messy bunch, the shady bunch, the shady bunch. I hope fraternity checks is worth being part of the shady bunch. We got a whole bunch of weird, loud, and wrong white conservative trying to make rules for us, and a bunch of people climbing out of their families' basements thinking you can talk crazy to people and you are socially inept. Y'all need to have a seat, because a lot of us are pistol packing, throat punching Black African Americans, so you may want to watch yourself. We all should be afraid of what we are only being shown on TV. What is it? Mormon talk or mom talk? Sister wives, poly families. Ugh. And y'all don't even watch TV, but y'all are dictating my viewing choices. The fuck? I do binge a bunch of reality TV, and I make no excuse for that. I just watched Lock Up Louisville, Kentucky. They show creativity and depravity. So many people. Louisville, Kentucky is supposed to be one of the safest cities in the United States, but if everybody in jail, that's why nobody can commit crime until they go on probation. I don't know, child. But I'm just going to need y'all to go to y'all prayer closets, y'all very conservative, missionary-minded Christians, and just leave me the F alone. One of the shows that I follow, and I'm glad it came back, but it was like a Mean Girl session, but it still was not as bad as season 14 and 15 before they went on hiatus and came back in 16. Real Housewives of Atlanta. I'm a raindrop. Followed Carlos King from his time, or Real Housewives of Atlanta. I didn't know he had produced Table Flipping, Teresa Goodeyes from Real Housewives of Jersey. Monday Night Lives, where they recap the previous episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta. I'm thoroughly enjoying Dustin and Claudia Jordan, their recaps. But I'm just going to focus in on Portia Williams, because this last episode was definitely a descent into the Mean Girl isms. And now Portia Williams is giving one note. More, not the same as, what's her name, Britt, who's also had a lot of plastic surgery gone wrong. We've seen since season 7, Portia is a mean girl. She was the one that dragged Kenya, actually season 6, because season 7 she came back as a friend of, because of her shenanigans at the reunion season 6 when she literally dragged Kenya Moore across the stage. She's literally still the same selfish airhead now that she was back in the day. She can be fun, and we see her and Shamia be those girls. Beautiful, fun, vapid. But she also, I don't think she has the capacity to be any deeper than that. And Claudia clocked it. And she's still staying on business. It makes me so sad that she didn't come back again after season 7. What I have noticed about these women is a bunch of trauma bonding. But what are we expecting that's going to be different? Portia Williams has always been gutter. And we've now seen 11 seasons, actually 10 seasons, I forgot, and I added in 11 because she's been on, we first met her in season 5 with Kenya Moore. She took a season or 2 off. Actually, maybe it's only 9 that she took a couple of seasons off, married to another fraud, Simon Gabadia, who she actually stole from her acquaintance. Because yes, he was still married to Phelan. Just saying. And no, you don't get to all blame it on the Henny of your flippant remark, because you don't think anyone, even though you want it to appear that you don't, because you probably don't care about anybody's feelings and why they would be hurt by your remarks of you saying that you may sleep with their husband, because we know that you are about that life. And we know you're about that life because we saw it play out in 9 seasons. We've seen it between that, Twitter, and on other social media. So, girl, we've seen her only react and do things if you can shame her into act right. But she's going to do whatever is necessary to elevate her brand. Damn anybody else. We've seen season 7 when she was a friend of, came back, Shade Assassin, Phaedra, Kenya. And what kills me, as Kenya went through all of that, and we are being deprived of a good old-fashioned read, unrehearsed, right, and Johnny on the spot. I think she completely overreacted to the stupidity that is Britt Ely, and we are being deprived of one of the greatest OGs of Real Housewives of Atlanta history. So, or Real Housewife history, matter of fact. What me rewatching Real Housewives of Atlanta, Kim feels, if she really was like her character Regine, that character would have been a perfect housewife. But her, as Kim feels, she just wanted to be regular, degular mom, and that is what she was not. She could have probably been better as a friend of, as a voice of reason, but not as a full-time. I think what Cynthia Bailey has been teaching us, and even Sheree has taught us, you could add benefit to the show, but you don't have to be a full-time housewife peach carrier. Because it wasn't that Kim Fields wasn't even built to be a fun TT. She just not, her real life is not built for the fodder that is housewives. Portia and single Shamia, they got caught up in some same ish. You remember that with the whole Miami of it all, and that cut basketball player, nephew of Sheree's ex-husband. Season 9 was the apex of freaking frack until Phaedra was forced to exit because she made that accusatory lie on Candy and she knew it was a lie. She perpetuated, and Portia basically co-signed on it because it gave her more street cred. And as long as she had Phaedra there, but she instantly backpedaled. She got into a fight, a kicking match with Cynthia Bailey, but that was a lie she couldn't come back from, so she had to make amends. Because I want to say, in the beginning of season 10, she was again bust down to a friend of, and she had to claw her way back up again, because her in her vapid, selfish ways knew she couldn't mess with the bag that was Real Housewives of Atlanta. Even though she had the fake hair bundles, as Kenya would say, she still could not. It was nothing to sneeze at by her, the cachet of being a full-time peach holder, and she knew that. And she only did that nonsense because if she had the support of the people that could inflate her brand and not mess with her bag. She understood that. She understands the assignment, and I don't understand. We've had 9 seasons of Portia acting for Portia. Why would you expect her to act any differently? Because she's not. She's really not that girl. She ain't all that deep. Despite who her father was, and definitely despite who Hosea Williams was, we saw a possibility of greatness when she was involved into the prosecution of the Breonna Taylor policeman that killed that girl in her own bed. We saw a little bit of that. But I think that was because it was what she was doing to inflate her brand at that time. That's not who she always is. That is not the sustainable Portia, because that is not, she's basically willing to roll with the times and be able to inflate what the world is, what will get you clicks and what will keep you up and popping either positively or negatively in social media. But she's really is not about that life. And she is not all that deep. And her feelings and who she actually is not all that deep. So why do y'all keep expecting her to continue to be that deep when it's not the sign of the times right now? You can take the girl out of the hood, but you can't take hood music out the girl. But I'm going to end this with a word, just as I started this podcast. Do or do not do. There is no try. And that's a word from Yoda. I hope I have conveyed just how much fun I have had in creating this podcast. I've got my mojo back. Just set your intention or reset your intention. It could be daily if necessary. Mine is peace. No mental dumping over here. If I'm acting like I'm not listening, I'm probably not. I'm not your therapist. I'm not a therapist. Keep the crazy to yourself, child. You do you and leave me be. The sooner you figure that ish out, the happy you will be. So this is what I want to convey in this podcast. And that wraps another of F.A.A.F.O has a fro. Join me next time as I throw shade and point out the shade and simply have fun. Y'all have a great new year. What, y'all? What?